It's time for another episode of The Oil Stream with Dustin Nielsen and Tom Gazzola, presented by Popeye's Louisiana Kitchen.
Well, happy Sunday evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Oil Stream. Special bonus Sunday episode. Nielsen and Gazzola with you. Decided to sneak in another one here on Sunday because I am gone for the upcoming week. Tom will be in on the Nielsen show, and we'll get back to The Oil Stream next week. It's as always, it's brought to you even on a Sunday night. It's brought to you by Popeye's Louisiana Kitchen. Most of you watching right now probably already had Popeye's Louisiana Kitchen for supper tonight or dinner. Tommy, are you a dinner guy or a supper guy? What do you call it?
I call it dinner. I grew up in a home that said supper a lot, but I realized that is kind of a regional saying.
It is, yes, it is. I believe people in Saskatchewan refer to lunch as supper, so it's very confusing. I think that's a true story.
Wow.
I think that's a true story.
Yeah. Hey, people in Saskatchewan, God bless them. I lived on the Saskatchewan side of Lloydminster when I was doing news out there. They call chocolate milk Vico, and they call hoodies bunny hugs. So let's just leave it at that.
Yeah, that's right. The good news with Popeye's Louisiana Kitchen, you can have it for lunch, supper, or dinner. They've got you covered all those times. DoorDash, Skip the Dishes, and Uber Eats. All right, Tommy, I always like to ask you this when we get going. Saturday night, post-game show on TSN 1260. What was the vibe? What was the mood?
Frustration, I think, is a good way to describe it. People were mad about the blown lead and the collapse. Officiating came under fire, as is tradition, like many markets. And so I think because of the early start, people were, after they got their venting sesh out of the way, they moved about their day and into their Saturday night and enjoyed it. But yeah, there was a lot of frustration in regard to how the Oilers collapsed in the last 8 minutes of that second period, and understandably so. That was tough. I mean, the goals were coming fast and furious for the Leafs, but we had Joaquin Gage fill in for Matt Cassian, and because Cass was taking care of, he was doing something, so Gager filled in, and he made a great point. And his point was, I'm not concerned with what happened last night because all the mistakes that the Oilers did make in the collapse are easily fixable. And he makes a good case. Like, those were self-inflicted wounds. It's frustrating because they've had so many already this season.
Yeah, that's the thing though, right? Like, they're continual self-inflicted wounds.
Right. And hey, we have to give Toronto credit because they're a very good team. That is a very good team. You opened the door for them like you did yesterday. That crap's going to happen. So Edmonton gets a harsh reminder that even though you're up a couple, you got to keep your foot on the gas. It's pedal to the metal, and you cannot make delicious pizzas available up the middle right in front of your goalie midway through the second period.
With Mitch Marner sitting right there.
Yeah.
like, you can't.
So you
just can't do that. Yeah, guy in tight like that with those hands, you're done. You're done in that situation.
Exactly.
So let's talk about that a little bit with McLeod. I mean, that's one of those. I was listening to you guys in the post game last night, driving home a little bit. I know Gager said, McLeod won't do that again, right? And I think you probably run him right back out there once again. But this is a team now that does have a little bit of depth in the bottom six. I don't think McLeod is yet in danger of being the odd man out. With that being said, I don't think it would be the worst thing in the world for him to maybe sit one game. But I don't think it's going to end up being one of these situations where he ends up being the odd man out. With that also being said, I'd be very surprised if he scratched in their upcoming game against Ottawa. So how do you think he bounces back from this? Do you expect them to really handle it in any way?
A lot of people were recommending that Klim Kostin just goes in for Ryan McLeod. It's simple as that.
You could do it for a game. You could do that for a game.
Yeah, you could if you want to send a message, but I don't think we saw a lot of McLeod after that giveaway. And I know he got a couple of shifts in the third period, so he knows he screwed up royally. Young player, obviously, he's had a bit of it hasn't been a roller coaster ride of a season, but he's kind of had streaks where he's been front and center in a good way, and you're seeing him handle the puck well and make plays, and then he goes on stretches where he's non-existent in the game, and I think we saw one of those stretches recently. He scored that goal against Boston, which was fantastic. I think because of his role on the PK, he's on the second power play unit, he probably doesn't end up being the odd man out. We probably finally see Shore come out and then Kostin go back in if they want that matchup against a Sens team that could be pretty feisty. But don't make those mistakes again. That's a really harsh lesson for a good young player. It earned the scorn of the fan base, and some of them again were saying, "Get him out, don't sit him for a few games." That's inexcusable. It really is an inexcusable mistake, but I don't think the proper way to teach him that lesson is to take him out of the lineup and say, "That was terrible. You're not playing." It might just be, "Okay, we're going to watch the video. Here are your clips. Feel shame on the plane ride back, and then get back into the game on Tuesday and play much better and don't make those mistakes."
Yeah, there's not even really much film to watch. I mean, he'll never put a puck like that up the middle of the ice right in front of his own net again this season. Like, that's lesson learned, right? Like, shouldn't do that anyway. So,
Dusty,
that's one.
Dusty, I'm not gonna say it's okay. You coughed up that goal and it led to an absolute collapse, but that's okay. No, it's not. Obviously, it led to the team blowing 2 points. But there were some other giveaways. Desharnais had a bad giveaway. I think it had something to do with his wrist. It doesn't look like he's got that snap on his passes right now. We saw Tavares slash him, and we saw the taped up wrist. So I think there's something going on there, obviously. On the goal that was an odd man rush the other way, Draisaitl tried to force the puck back down low into traffic, which ended up being a turnover, and it came back, and I think it led to the fourth goal, if I'm remembering correctly, the Tavares goal. Instead of, he could have button hooked and looked back up to the point, and instead he tried to go in and just like smack the puck back down low where it had just come from. Yamamoto and I believe Nugent Hopkins were working down low, and they got it up to him, and he just quickly smacked it back down, and all it did was create the turnover. And it came back the other way and they scored. He could have button hooked, had patience, looked for the open man at the point, and made a better play. So there was many parties egregiously making mistakes last night. Not just McLeod, but McLeod, falls under the spotlight, deservedly so, because that was the horrific giveaway that led to the implosion.
Let's talk about Desharnais and Tavares, the back and forth there. It was announced earlier today that Tavares has been suspended $5,000 for that slash. I tweeted that I thought it could have been at least a game, which has led to some Leafs fans obviously hopping back in and saying, "Oh, it's a love tap." Like Tavares, that's what he should have done in that situation. And you know what? I'm fine with a guy like Tavares or McDavid or some of these guys standing up for themselves, Tommy. But if you slash a guy two-hander right over the wrists, whoever you are, you can stand up for yourself, but that doesn't mean you don't have to deal with the freaking consequences. And that's what happened here. He got a $5,000 fine. That was not trying to just hit his stick. Straight up looked at the wrists and slashed him two-hander. I can't believe they evened it up in that situation. And I'm very, well, maybe I shouldn't be surprised with the way player safety handles things, but that should have been at least a game, I think.
I think you could make the argument that it's worthy of a one-game suspension. It was a nasty, deliberate slash on the soft part where the cuff ends and the elbow pad starts to begin. Like, he got him on that sweet spot. There was a great back and forth between the two of them. Desharnais got some cheap shots in. I don't know, maybe some people remember the old, get the stick on the back of the legs right at the bend of the knee to knock guys down. I thought Vinny did that a couple of times, and I was like, ooh, that's dirty. And so he got some bite back from Tavares, but how Tavares caught him, I think it's fair to say that should get a look and could be worthy of a suspension. If people watch the video and the player safety department puts out a video and they says, John Tavares has been suspended for one game for his slash on Vincent Desharnais. And then you watch the video and you see how bad it was. You're like, yeah, okay, I get it.
It's a game. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that game last night, I'll end it with this because I talked about how the officiating came under the ire and scrutiny of the Oilers fans, which it always does. It always does. Yeah. But when you've got both refs and fans in the background behind the coaches, while the coaches are going, what the hell are you calling? And both coaches shaking their head like, I don't get it. And you've got fans that you can see on camera behind the coaches going, what the hell was that? 4 times where you end up in a situation of 4-on-4.
So bad.
That's bad. That's funny. That's weird. And it's not haha funny. It's funny, like, what the heck are they doing? So yeah, it was an oddly officiated game. And so to Oiler fans' credit, I agree with them in that instance as well.
All right, let's get to your Boston Pizza Appetizer. Appy hour daily from 2 to 5, and then again from 9 until close. Obviously, past the Tuesday as well, if you want to swing by there at all of your Boston Pizza locations. How do we sum up the road trip, Tommy? 4-game trip, lost to Winnipeg, gave up 7, beat Buffalo 3-2, beat Boston 3-2, and then lost to Toronto and gave up 7. So how do you summarize this trip?
Yeah. Not bad. Not bad. I mean, that looked like a murderer's row heading into the week. You get the big win at home against the Jets. Yes. You give up 7 in Winnipeg the next night. Winnipeg came back feisty. They took advantage of Jack Campbell. Obviously, it's solidified he's the backup the rest of the way unless something ridiculous happens, knock on wood. You get a huge win in Boston. You do a good job in Buffalo. So I think those are positives, obviously. And then there are elements of that Toronto game that you could look at and be like, yeah, that, you guys were in control for 32 minutes of the game until you basically open the door and let the Leafs right back in and they stampeded through. So, okay, adequate. Got a couple of points in some tough buildings against good teams. Regroup, have a big week coming up against the Sens and the Dallas Stars, and I think everything's okay. You're still in a good spot to make some hay with the next few weeks, especially against Pacific Division rivals coming up. I'm looking forward to that game against the Golden Knights. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the big thing moving forward here. They got 5 games against the Golden Knights, Kraken, and Los Angeles Kings, and they've got some ground to make up. 6 points back of the Golden Knights now, with the Golden Knights having a game in hand on them as well. And I was looking this week, the Oilers have a very, very nice schedule the rest of the way, but 2 of those 3 teams also have bottom 7 schedules as far as strength of schedule goes. So there could be a lot of these specific teams making up ground down the stretch here as well. I look at the road trip, but I kind of go like, meh. Like, it's arguably, I think that game against the Bruins is arguably their best win of the season, considering how they won it, the position they were in. So you've got maybe your best win of the season on this road trip. Game against Buffalo, I thought was kind of a McDavid-Skinner show. Skinner was really good in that game. McDavid was obviously brilliant. I didn't think the team overall was terrific, but those 2 guys certainly got the job done. And then you had 2 games where you allowed 7, right? So it's kind of like, meh. Like, it was a road trip. 1 really nice win, 2 pretty disappointing losses, and a win in which was very, I think, great for the confidence of your young goaltender, and Skinner kind of got him going, and that carried over into the game against Boston because he wasn't rattled and stuck around and won that game. And then obviously the trip ends with, I didn't think he was awful last night. I think the team in front of him didn't really give him much help. Probably at least 1 goal that he would want to have back. But this also kind of summarizes. This is 4-game stretch to me. And when I look at it, and I was thinking about this yesterday, kind of summarizes the season. Like, they go and beat the Boston freaking Bruins in fine fashion. You're like, my God, look at this team. But then they gave up 7 to the Jets and 7 to the Leafs. And you're like, when does this inconsistency end? And Tommy, through good stretches and bad stretches here, there's been moments of brilliance, and then there's been moments of like, what are they doing?
Yeah.
Do they kick that? Do they kick that at some point? Or because I feel we're going to get into a playoff series and it's going to be the same thing where it's like 2 or 3 games, they're bloody perfect. And then 2 or 3 games, they're a bloody mess.
It seems like, and Boston and Buffalo being the examples, like, and they've talked about it post-game after these games, is they're finding ways to win those low-scoring games where the power play doesn't get a lot of opportunities. Those are good things going into these last 15. And if they could continue to build on that, especially against those Pacific Division rivals, Seattle, LA, and Vegas, and then I'll even lump in Dallas coming up on Thursday, I think that we could say, okay, they've learned. They've added a layer, as Woodcroft likes to say, to their game. You look at the 7 that they gave up against Winnipeg and the 7 that they gave up against Toronto in 2 different scenarios. In Winnipeg, Jack Campbell allowed 3 of those goals were on Jack Campbell. I'm sorry. Like, they're straight up on Jack Campbell. You had 5 in that game. You should have won it. Jack Campbell let you down. The 3 tip goals, I gave him those. That's okay. Those were nice tips. But the 3 after, not good. With Skinner, with the way it happened, it was a momentum shift. They didn't take a timeout. It's a Saturday night. A lot of Toronto guys playing in their hometown. A lot of high flying. The Leafs are trying to get redemption after what happened in Edmonton in a big game. That was a good win for the Oilers on the first. So that, can lead to a situation where things open up like that. So it's a little bit different. I think they button it down. But like the 2017 team, there are moments where they let up and shit blows up on them and in their face. But it's how quickly they respond and how properly they respond. And that'll be the true test.
I get to a couple of comments on my tweet about Tavares should have been suspended for a game. This one came in from Calvin the Murph. A game laughable. The little Frenchie can toughen up a bit. That was a warm-up tap back in Gretzky's day, Dusty. Come on. That's got so many things, referring to Desharnais as a little Frenchie, and then once again referencing the 1980s in comparison to today's hockey. Totally makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
it was a targeted two-hander on the wrist. I mean, I don't care what era that's in. That's a targeted two-hander on the wrist.
Yeah.
Should have been a suspension.
Could have been, but it wasn't. It's a fine. It's a drop in the hat for John Tavares. But referencing the 80s, listen, hockey's completely different. That's 30, 40 years ago. Come on.
Long time ago.
Gretzky's 61, 62 years old. Like, even if you reference the 90s, I'd be like, hey, it's not the same.
Tommy, before we go, I did see, I saw some people there a little bit. I think it's not really a talking point, but I just want your thoughts on it because you were in that room for a long time. You're still in the room today. DNB said that they requested McLeod and Desharnais after the game, and the leadership core said, no, Nuge and Kane will speak. So those guys came out and spoke instead. Desharnais was probably getting some treatment on the wrist, so I totally understand that. McLeod, throw him to the wolves, I guess, in this situation after the mistake. I can see it both ways, to be honest with you. I mean, McLeod was a big part of that story. And as a reporter who's building the story, you do want to get that quote from McLeod. So I understand it from the media side of things, but I also understand it from the team side of things where you're like, no, we're done throwing these younger-ish guys to the wolves. We'll talk about McLeod. We'll talk about the play. We'll talk about the game. So to me, it's almost a non-talking point because I legitimately think it makes sense on both sides. You wouldn't want to talk to McLeod. They didn't get it, but the leadership wants to step up here. So I don't know. Do you have a take on this? Where do you come out on this?
You know what? And McLeod probably was visiting family and friends. They do that. They only have a small window of opportunity to go and see people that are there to watch them play. Yeah, they might be protecting him a little bit. If it was a home game, I'm sure Ryan McLeod would have spoke. Listen, there isn't as many media on the road covering the team as before. The Journal and Sun don't travel anybody. We had Masters there, obviously, and the TSN 1050 guys on that end, but the home broadcasters, Hockey Night was there. On a Saturday night, I don't know if you're getting absolutely devoured by the media, and the Toronto media were probably focusing on the Leafs and their big win, so I don't know if it would have been that bad. I'm assuming, like you said, Desharnais was probably getting treatment, and then McLeod maybe was visiting, and the other guys stepped up. And listen, I thought Evander Kane was great. I think if he was deflecting attention,
he gave him some stuff to talk about. Yeah,
fantastic. I'm going to give Evander Kane a lot of credit too, because the wrist thing and the nerves and all that. Like, if he can't play the typical Evander Kane game that he's known to play throughout his career, he finds other ways to be involved. Scored a nice goal yesterday. Good on him. But I think the way he handled Bunting was completely calculated. I think he let Bunting take some swipes at him and make it look like Bunting had a hope in hell of actually doing some damage on Kane. I thought that was brilliant. He's been a spark plug this year. And then the way he handled it post-game was fantastic. Kudos to him. That was 100% a veteran move, completely calculated. I think physically, if Kane wanted to, he would beat the snot out of Michael Bunting. And the way he handled that was deliberate and perfect. That's a veteran move. And then to go and say, no, let Ryan McLeod go talk to family, not talk with the media after a tough night. And I'm going to go say something which was pretty juicy. That's a veteran move where I'll be like, that was good. And he gave the media something. No qualms there.
Still got their quotes. So mission accomplished there by Evander Kane. That'll be mission accomplished for us here on a Sunday night with the Oil Stream, part of the Nielsen Media Coolbet Network, brought to you by our great partners at Popeyes Louisiana Kitchen. They got some fun stuff coming up for the postseason with the Oilers, so we'll have details on that right here on the Oil Stream. We won't have another episode for about 6 or 7 days until I return from vacay. Tommy will be in on the Nielsen show. I appreciate that, Tommy. It's going to be a busy week for you, buddy, but thanks for stepping up. Great teammate.
You bet.
And get us out of here, buddy. Let's wrap it up.
All right, because I got to go to bed. I need to go to bed at like 8 p.m. now.
Yeah, bedtime, buddy.
This week.
Yeah,
4 a.m. comes quickly. So with that being said, Dusty, have a fantastic trip with the fam. And thanks for tuning in. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, smash that thumbs up. We're playing the algorithm game. Have a great week. And join me on the Nielsen show. Bring that AM nasty. And we'll see you next week.